Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Inside Sports Podcast. That is, of course, with the DE capitalized. We're on episode 21, folks. Just like the joke I made last week, our episode can now, or not our episode, but our series can now drink. Let's go ahead and break it in with softball. They're coming off 4 straight wins this past week, versus SEMO earlier in the week, and then 3 wins against Indiana State. They're currently sitting at 27-5. Gosh, I love reading what happens in softball every week. They're 9-2 in the Missouri Valley. For this next week, they have a game at SLU Wednesday, and then they have another series at Evansville. We're going to start to see, they've been playing a lot at home this past year, but now they're going to be playing a lot on the road coming up. A little scary for them, I love the great record, and that should be able to translate, of course. However, you never know in a game like softball. So, Joey, tell me what your thoughts have been so far.
Yeah, the first thing I just want to point out, there's like a real chance this team could go undefeated at home, which is just insane to me. I don't know how many times we've done that in Saluki softball history. I don't know how we can even figure that out. But anyways, that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, there's one.
They're doing phenomenal right now, and I think it's interesting that they're still only third in the conference because those 2 conference losses to, I think it was Belmont, really put us back because I think the 2 teams ahead of us are undefeated in conference. So that's just so interesting to me. But it seems like this team, there's always a chance if there's outs left. We had a comeback win against SEMO this past week. 2/3 of the season already in the books. I just think that's insane. The season has just flown by so far. But they can win in a multitude of ways, whether it's a slugfest with hitting, just come back in the 7th, I should say, or just a pitcher's duel. It doesn't really matter. This team can win, and they know how to win. And I feel like that's a credit to Jen Sewell, just in the different ways and the way that they built this roster, at least the past couple of years. So
yeah.
But yeah, they still haven't played the 2 teams ahead of them at this point, UNI and Illinois. So I think that'll be interesting when we do play them on the road. I believe we'll be both of those series. So I'll just wait to see how that plays out against those 2 teams that are ahead of us in the conference right now. But they're doing amazing.
Yeah. Jordan, how do you think those games are going to fare, seeing as what we've seen so far from this year?
Well, I think this past weekend showed us a lot about how far this team can go, and it's all reliant on the pitching. Maddie Eberle was fantastic this weekend in every facet, and Hockerman pitched good in the last game against Indiana State as well. Elliott Stinson, also fantastic. We're going to go as far as our pitching can go. There were times this weekend where I thought the offense wasn't as, just world-beating as it had been to start the year, which is, you can expect that.
Yeah.
Especially from a really, really young team that was still hitting pretty well. The entire lineup, whether it was the first game where they won, I think 1-0, and Bailey Kaler came up with the big RBI hit at the end, and she typically bats near the bottom of the lineup. So if she's getting those clutch hits, you know that the rest of the lineup is going to follow suit eventually. But like I said, Everly is going to be the key to how far we can go in the season, keep that undefeated at home streak going. And, if we can get 4 or 5 runs on the board, I think Everly, that's all she needs. So I loved what I saw this weekend. Elizabeth Warwick on defense had another robbed home run. Everything was fantastic on the defensive end, pitching, and with the glove. So loved what I saw.
What's really starting to strike out to me is I feel that it feels like
nice pun.
yeah, no pun intended actually. But the women's sports at SIU during my 2 years of being here, it seems like it's very, very hit or miss. While the men's teams are always just
another pun.
Yeah, I guess another one. But even still,
a lot of striking out here.
The men's teams, they're more consistently a little bit above average, at least in my 2 years here. Because when you guys said that they're undefeated at home, which I did see too, which is very, very impressive. Who else went undefeated at home is last year's women's basketball team, and they obviously went on a very, very deep run. So hopefully softball will have the same success. Now, to talk about baseball, we went 3-1 this past week, with a win over UT Martin early in the week, and then we beat Bradley in 2 out of the 3 games this past weekend. We're seeing more positive signs. That's good.
Yep.
3-1's healthy. That's really, really good for us to see. We're sitting at 15-13 right now, 5-1 in the conference. That conference record looks a lot better. We have a game tonight, actually, just about a couple minutes, against Lindenwood, and then a weekend series versus Belmont. Belmont's going to be pretty good. Joey, how do you think we fare against them?
Yeah, just the first thing I want to just point out here, or I guess pose a question, is just, are we back into that groove of this where we thought this team was at? We're only a base hit in the 9th inning of that. I think it was Bradley that we played from an 8-game win streak at this point, which is kind of weird when you look at the schedule because I think we had a postponement or something like that, and then we had a couple of days off. But just I think they're kind of finding out their identity at this point. I don't know if we can really win those pitchers duels because it's just seeming like the starting pitching, but outside of Ben Chapman, hasn't really been there at this point.
Yeah,
but,
well, hold on. Not to interrupt you, but I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about this because we talked a lot about Steidl heading into this year, and he doesn't seem to be much of an ace this year. I mean, you guys know baseball better than me. Is there some reasoning behind that?
He's mostly just like a relief pitcher, closer guy. He's supposed to be a closer.
Yeah, he was supposed to be, the closer coming into the season.
Right.
And I think it's one of those things where when a guy has a really good junior year, to expect him to come back and be just that dominant, because we forget how good he was last year.
He was.
And to expect him to come back and be that again is, it's kind of unfair sometimes. Now, with how, I guess, how much he's been disappointing a little bit this year, that was probably unexpected. But the whole pitching staff as a whole hasn't been the best, but they are turning it on at the right time, particularly in conference play, sitting at 5-1 now, heading into a big weekend series with Belmont here. So, like I said, they're getting hot at the right time. The hitting, besides scoring 16 runs, they've started to find themselves in a groove as well. I don't know if they'll be as explosive as the last couple of years have been, but the team's clicking at the right time. I'm not too worried about Steidl. I think if there's any time for him to have a rough patch, this is it. As we continue on through conference play, I think it's only up from here.
For whatever reason, I don't know how I'm going to say this, I guess, but it seems like the starting pitching knows just what they're putting in enough effort to what they need to do, and then their offense comes into play to get them enough runs.
You feel like they're scraping by.
Yeah, they're just scraping
the pitching,
by.
They get just enough for us to follow.
Yeah, they get just enough, I guess, out of the starts, at least lately. But obviously, we need some more. We can't just go 3-4 innings all the time out of our starters, at least. That's just not going to do it.
The other thing we have to remember too is that Cable Rock had only had one home run coming in this last series against Bradley. So the stars on the offensive end, even like I just said, the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year returning, it hasn't been those guys carrying the load. It's been a pretty balanced lineup, just kind of like a reference with the softball team. Not all their stars were hitting bombs and going yard a lot this weekend. So they're finding their balance. That's ultimately what it's about, and they're finding their identity, like Joey was saying.
Yeah, I think it's really important not to be one-dimensional.
Absolutely.
So we don't want that. We want them to maybe struggle in some places. So now at least we know where we need to improve.
We're past the midway point of the season now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's not crunching time, as my old coach used to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alrighty, folks. For this week in the NBA, we've got 3 takeaways that I want to go ahead and get us started off with. Number 1, who was the favorite in the West? This just fascinates me. The West is so tight this year. I think the East has the more dominant 3 teams with the Bucks, Celtics, 76ers. I think they're all really, really talented. However, the West, it's interesting to see who's going to come out the West. I really don't have an idea. I personally like the Suns, but Suns are a tough one to like because Kevin Durant hasn't really played with the team a whole lot. But then I just go, okay, does any duo even come close to comparing to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker? The fact is, no, they don't.
Well, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, when they're healthy.
Okay,
when they're healthy, and that's very rare. Healthy. So yeah.
Oh, so you mean 3 years ago? Okay, yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
They're still pretty freaking good today. They just don't play. They just don't play.
They won't play. Yeah. They won't play. There's not talk about the season being grueling. There's been, I think the playoffs are even harder for a lot of these guys to get through because they've already gone through the entire season.
Totally.
Then they got to.
I think I'm about due for a Jordan Cruz, LeBron James rant about why he's not the GOAT.
Well, seriously.
No, not today. No,
he's going.
I'm feeling great today.
I enjoy
a good mood.
I enjoy listening to those.
I'm in a good mood though.
Yeah.
I think that
if they
people
make the playoffs, they'll come. Trust me.
Oh yeah, but I think that the Kings have a real chance. I'm not even joking around. I think the Kings. This is a year just like we had with UConn. And I'm sure Jay Cruz is going to touch on that one for us. But this is a year where something just weird happens and we go, wow, the Kings made it this year. Their offense is super dynamic. The other problem is their defense, not much of it. So that's a question that absolutely fascinates me.
Can I ask something?
Go ahead.
Can you give me the top 5? Read the standings in the West. Give me the top 5 teams real quick.
Top 5. So we have Nuggets,
mm-hmm.
Grizzlies at 2.
Mm-hmm.
3 is the Kings. 4 is the Suns. And 5 currently is the Clippers, but they're tied with the Golden State Warriors at 6.
I'll tell you, 4 of those 5 teams I think, deserve Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals consideration. All but one team, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies. Honestly, they're not. Here's
the thing.
Because our beloved Chicago Bulls just came back down big on them and ended up winning the game by the amount that they were down by.
Yeah.
And there's something about them that they just don't have it like that. Like you'd feel like John Morant is that guy.
See, but that's the
But
thing is
I just don't think they
it's
have
kind of
it.
lining up for them this year.
It
That's
was
why I
last
feel
year
weird.
too, though. Like they were
No,
facing the old
last year was
Warriors
their,
and-
oh, okay, they're pretty good. And then this year's their year where they go, okay, next step.
Is that next step losing to the Bulls by 21? That's
I'm just saying,
cool next step.
I'm just saying what's fascinating is losing Jean Morant, your star player's out, huge distraction, and yet you're still
Yeah.
the 2 seed.
It's kind of like a Brandon Miller situation almost.
Yeah.
Like in the NBA, pretty
Ah,
much.
that's true.
With Ja,
It's
it's like
literally, it's very
it's one of those
comparable
things
that
where
way.
like he's targeted now.
They are. Leave that in. That was good.
That's
That was good. No pun
But
intended.
he's got to
That
turn
was
on
not
his back
intended.
now. Like for how much popularity he's gained over the last couple of years, and then he has this situation come up. Guys are going to go after him,
Yes.
and
That's
obviously he's a
irrelevant.
phenomenal basketball player.
That's the most hilarious moment on this podcast.
He's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
phenomenal basketball player, and again, it's not really about him. It's just about the Grizzlies as a whole. I think those 5 teams, maybe not the Clippers, but I think those other 3 teams that you mentioned would be able to outlast the Grizzlies and any sort of onslaught that John Morant could bring, scoring and passing the ball.
Well, let's just lead that into my second point here, which is which play-in team has a chance to go on a little playoff run. Because, like I said, this is a weird year. We got weird teams all across the board, and I think that there's some real potential. So I'm going to give one Eastern Conference team, and there's 2 that I like in the West. Now, the Eastern Conference playoffs team, you guessed it, is our Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure, Jay Cruz, go
No,
ahead.
can you just read off for listeners and for me because I don't even know this?
That's fair.
Read off each of the teams that are in the play-in right now in both conferences, so the people at home can get maybe their own guesses for this.
That's a good point. In the East, we have the Heat at the 7th seed, Hawks at the 8th seed, Raptors at the 9th seed, and Bulls at the 10th seed. Now, for the most part, that's almost fairly locked in. The Orlando Magic still have a shot to make it. If the Bulls lose their
That's kinda
final
crazy.
4 games and
Yeah.
the Magic win, then the Magic will be in instead of the Bulls. However, so that's what the Eastern Conference looks like. And I guess I'll break that down first because I wanted to bring up the Bulls. The Bulls, if they somehow sneak into a position where they get to play the Celtics, me and you have talked about this a fair
Yes.
amount. The Bulls play the Celtics really, really well every single time.
Mm-hmm.
The Bulls also have a great home atmosphere to where if you're sitting at 1-1
Yeah.
and the Bulls take one of those games in the TD Garden and you got to go back to Chicago for 2 days, that's a really scary situation actually. So Patrick Beverley, this is one of the things, I'm not a huge Pat Bev fan, and I kind of would hate
You have to be now.
if he would lead this charge because you know how much he'd be talking. You know
But he'd
how
be
much
talking for us.
I know, but it's it's
you're
so
saying you'd
annoying.
be mad about a Bulls run?
No,
I wouldn't,
No.
but I would find it obnoxious because Pat Bev's like, yeah, I'm the reason we're here. It's like,
All right.
maybe it's not, but it's DeMar DeRozan.
I love the Bulls. You love the Bulls.
Love
I want to throw something out.
I
Steve.
want them to make
I want
it.
to throw something out there. You know who I think the X factor is for the Chicago Bulls? Because I agree with you. I think of all the teams in the play-in, they have. I'm not saying they would even beat, honestly, those other teams in the play-in, but of those teams, which one has a chance to make the run? I think it is the Bulls, and because there's one X factor, his name's Andre Drummond. And the reason I think he's an X factor is
What?
because, listen to me,
I'm listening.
before you do that stupid smirk,
I'm listening.
let me listen to me. Andre Drummond does one thing that Nikola Vucevic cannot do.
Mhm.
He's at least a little athletic, can go
Yes.
up, defend, bang with those big bigs down low,
Mhm.
like a Horford, for example.
Yep.
Drummond is a much better defender. He's still like there's times when Drummond's playing, you see this is why you were a top 5 center at one point.
Yeah.
Obviously he's fallen off since then, but he turns it on, and sometimes he just is really, really lazy. But he has it in him, and I think he would be the kind of guy that could get geared up for a playoff game and really turn it on. And then you have the complement with Nikola Vucevic. He can shoot. He's really crafty in the paint. Whenever he gets the ball, I'm pretty confident that he's going to do something good with it. So I think Drummond is a key because defense, especially on the inside, is what the Bulls have lacked. Like what Giannis did to us in the playoffs last year. Even we didn't have Lonzo, so honestly, we were kind of doomed from the start. But Giannis was just able to drive and do whatever he wanted in most of those games in the playoffs last year. So I think he's going to be the key for any sort of success that the Bulls have. And obviously, DeMar and Zach have to have good games as well.
I think it's kind of a good point. Now I'm gonna go same angle, but better take, obviously. Patrick Williams he's got.
I agree with that as well.
Because if we do run into the Bucks, like I said, I mean I think the Bucks
I'd hate to
kill
run
us.
the
I mean
Bucks.
they always kill us.
I don't want to do that.
But Patrick Williams does have that Grant Williams-esque potential, like Grant Williams had last year, where he's obviously smaller than Giannis, but he's smart, and he plays so tough. He plays so much bigger than he actually is. I'm a huge Patrick Williams guy. He's one of the only guys on the team that I actually do. I guess I shouldn't say that anymore, but I don't know. The Bulls. Yeah. I don't want to go too in length on my.
We'll get there.
We'll
get there when the matchups are actually. Set.
And so in the Western Conference, I hate to say this, because I'm debating between the Lakers or Pelicans as one of the teams. Because Pelicans, if they get Zion back, that's terrifying.
That's very.
I mean, you if they run into the Grizzlies, then you got a real argument for me that they could make a sweep. I mean, Jaren Jackson's going to foul out every single game. Zion's going to draw 100 fouls.
Yep.
So I'm going to go with the Pelicans, only because I have more faith in them than I do in LeBron and Anthony Davis staying healthy. And although I love that the Lakers, like all the moves they made at the trade deadline, people didn't give them enough credit. They were great. You get Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt's a stud. All these guys are really great. Austin Reeves is coming into his own. They didn't get him at the trade deadline, but he's been pretty good. A little too high praise. I mean, the signature shoe is actually ridiculous.
That's kind of crazy.
But and then the final team I have here in the Western Conference, I guess just to list them off too. It goes 7 seed Lakers, 8 seed Pelicans, which is why I'm talking about them, 9 seed Minnesota Timberwolves, and then 10 seed. I've been loving them all year. Oklahoma City Thunder. I love the Thunder. I want them in instead of the Mavericks. SGA is going to finish top 5 in MVP voting. I love their coach. I love literally every single player that they have on their team. There's no reason to me why they wouldn't be able to make it, as opposed to they just lack size. And if they do make it into like 8 spot, and then they have to play Jokic first round, I mean, they literally don't have a chance. They have no big center.
Yeah.
Their center's Jalen Williams, who was a junior in college last year.
The Thunder are a pretty young team, aren't they?
Very young. Nobody expected them to be here, which is why I love them so much. And I'd like to see them in more in the Mavericks, because I don't like. I've always been a huge Luka guy. Shout out Chase Williams. He's definitely not watching, but Chase Williams, we had a giant debate in the 2018 draft where he just kept on saying, DeAndre Ayton's the pick, DeAndre Ayton. And I was like, nobody. Let me tell you, Luka is. That's one of my biggest brags about how I should be an NBA GM, which I should. I'm putting that right now. And the NBA team is looking for a GM, this guy right here.
You could do better than LeBron.
Absolutely. See? Absolutely. And so, and just wanted to put you guys on some games, some really important ones. Warriors at Kings on Friday. That one's going to be a big one. I think I'm going to go Warriors here just because I think they're going to be a little more hungry to kind of show out. The Kings still have a safe distance away. On Sunday, Magic at Heat. This will be a huge one if the Magic are still somehow alive. I think the Bulls beat the Hawks tonight and kind of end the debate.
I hope so.
But this one would be huge. 2 Florida teams. Magic are going to keep on trying the rest of the way. I know they are, just because of how they handle their situations, all the young guys they have. And then on Sunday, Clippers at Suns. This one's going to be huge. It could be, because if you remember what I was listing off, 4 seed Suns, 5 seed Clippers. Now, I believe that's going to become 4 seed Suns, 5 seed Warriors. But the Clippers really need to pick it up here, and they're missing Paul George right now, so it's going to get a little rough for them down the stretch. And we could see them even fall into the play-in because everything is so close.
I think the Kings, if the Clippers were to fall to 6, the Kings would be salivating at that matchup,
Absolutely.
Especially without Paul George, another good perimeter defender out of the way, Kevin Huerter, and then would be shooting the lights out.
Absolutely. And so just for my picks here, because I'm 17 for 6 so far, 74% this year. It's pretty good stuff. Pretty dang good. Warriors at Kings, I'm going to go with Warriors. Magic at Heat, I'm going to go with the Heat. I think that they'll lock it down. And then Clippers at Suns, I'm going to go with Suns at home. Right. So rough week for the Clippers. Jay Cruz. 2 college basketball seasons just ended. 2 national championships just happened.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, buddy.
Yeah, let's go chronological order. The women's national championship on Sunday, the most watched one ever because of the two main headline stars, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Basically, no one's really talking about the game. Obviously, LSU dominated. Kim Mulkey, a fantastic coach, now led 2 programs. She was the coach of Baylor, I believe, when Brittany Griner was at Baylor. So she's a fantastic coach, obviously a fantastic recruiter as well. And the game was great, very, very high scoring. Caitlin Clark's still a legend. I think she may have to be in college for one more year, which is kind of crazy. They need to change those rules. The WNBA needs to change those rules because she could probably go into the WNBA today and be a top 5 player. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
Angel Reese though, double machine. She was fantastic. And then of course with everyone's doing the John Cena "You Can't See Me." That was Caitlin Clark's signature move, and then Angel Reese did it right afterwards. to kind of taunt her. And a lot of people had their takes on that, including Mr. Cole Daly. So I'll just let you have the floor. I don't have too many opinions. I mean, it is trash talk. What Angel did was probably a little too far, but I'm not going to get up in arms about it and call it classless. The only classless part about it to me was the fact that they just kept talking about it, like the rest of the LSU players kept talking about it afterwards, like she was disrespecting us, and we know you're good. Act like you've been there before. Is all I would say to the rest of the LSU players. But I didn't really have a huge problem with what Angel Reese did. But maybe you have a different opinion.
So Jay Cruz led the way for me. Act like you've been there before. First of all, now I'm not a huge back in high school. I received multiple technical fouls on the basketball court. I led the team in technical fouls.
You, Cole Daly?
I have a little big head over myself, and I understand why, and I do like it. I like fighting, but we just talked about Patrick Beverly and my distaste for him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's a little obnoxious, and I think that, first of all, the refs sucked that game. It was a big talk.
They did.
Sucked. They were 100% LSU's favor.
Yeah.
How do you say her last name?
Mulkey.
Yeah. She was all up on, and I like her. I like her.
Yeah.
I like this LSU team.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is, I just hate when Cinderella stories get ruined almost. And I thought that, and not that Iowa's a Cinderella team. That's definitely not the case. But like Caitlin Clark was such a great story.
Yeah.
She's the perfect March Madness figure.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I'm gonna pull up from 40 feet. I didn't like this. I don't like doing either of those when you're up by 15 and there's like 2 minutes left. Also, Caitlin Clark's walking away. You don't even like do it to her face. Because if you're gonna talk trash, make sure it's you do something and then you walk and you look them right in the eyes and you don't wait till they turn their back and then you go, oh, by the way, like it's when Stephen Curry did to Jaylen Brown that one year where he does a pump fake and then he starts like yapping at him from behind, and I was like, dude, he's not even looking at you.
Right.
Like that's just my rules on trash talking, and I've done plenty of it myself, so I feel like I can at least distribute a little bit of that.
Cole Daly's lesson on trash talk.
It just bothers me. If you're gonna trash talk, it better be to their face. It better be some actual yapping instead of just it's like you talk about. Like another thing that bothered me is before the game. So obviously Iowa factored in guarding that one lady on the South Carolina basketball team. I can't remember her name. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark, there's a famous image of her like doing this while she was out on the 3-point line, and LSU like took problem with it. And I was like, the NBA's been doing that to Ben Simmons for years. Like, what does it matter?
People did that to Cole Daly in high school.
Well, now, hold on. No, in fact, I was actually getting Caitlin Clark treatment. They regarded me. No, I'm just kidding.
You're watching this and you went to high school with Cole Daly. Please comment.
Obviously,
let us know.
Obviously not. But, no, it just bothered me. I don't like that kind of stuff. You know what? Here's a good example. Now, obviously, Patrick Beverly took it too far, but here's why I don't like him. Chris Paul's walking away from him last year in the playoffs, or maybe it was 2 years ago in the playoffs, and then he goes up and shoves him behind his back.
No, yeah.
What is that? You can't do that.
That's scumbag behavior.
To the face. That's how you trash talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about UConn.
I agree. Talk about domination. That's what it was. And I think a lot of the casuals, including Cole Daly, didn't like the fact that this Final Four didn't have enough brands.
No, absolutely. That's not what I said.
Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina.
Not what I said.
Not
what I said.
But that's the well.
I know
it's
like
not what you said.
That's
That's a lot of the sentiment though that people took away from this Final Four, and it's like, sorry that one, and that's again, I said it last week. That's what people say they want. People say they want to see the big upsets. That's why we love March Madness. And then when it happens, people are like, "But I want Duke. I want Kansas."
There was a little bit of that this year for sure.
There was a little bit of that, but UConn though, you're a big college football guy. I have a great comparison for UConn to the college football world.
Thinking of it.
What team is UConn basically the same as?
TCU.
No. No, we're talking about over the last.
I was so confident.
We're talking like over the last 20 years.
Oh, 20 years.
Compare UConn basketball, who has won 5 national titles in the last 25 years, to a team in college football that maybe has won a similar amount of national titles in the last 20 years. But yet, in every year they don't win a national title, they're not really that great. LSU, exactly. LSU either wins the national title or they're like 8-4, 9-3. The other thing that's crazy about LSU is they've won their 3 national titles, all with 3 different coaches. UConn has won each of their national titles with 3 different coaches. Jim Calhoun was the late 90s and then the one with Kemba. And then Kevin Ollie, which
That one was kind of.
He didn't really last.
That was Jim Calhoun's. That was.
Well, it was his team, but
Yeah.
Kevin Ollie was the coach. You got to give it to him. And then Darren Hurley comes in, and maybe the most dominant run in NCAA tournament history, other than one half with Iona in the first round. There was never a doubt. There was never a doubt in anyone's mind. San Diego State made it close in the end, which, congratulations to them. They had another great run as well. But for UConn to do what they did in a year where there's so much parity, you figure there's so many upset, and they just done it the whole way through. They ended up being, even though they were a 4 seed, they ended up being number 1 in pretty much every metric in advanced analytics stat. Mm-hmm. So that's another reason why I think people lost interest, is because they just looked at the seed number and they were like, oh, these teams suck. When in reality, like I said last week, we have 4 really, really good teams in this. And I think people just in this kind of culture just kind of get hung up on seed numbers, and these teams were better than any of the 1, 2, or 3 seeds. So it just kind of is what it is. But it was a great tournament. I did not end up winning my tournament group bracket. I ended up coming in 3rd, and I lost to my brother.
You were in the
because I won, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you came in last.
Dead last,
pretty
folks.
close.
Dead last.
Dead last.
Pretty
folks.
close.
About
but
11 places behind.
Now listen, we talk about this being the year of upsets. So the experts, the experts knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So if you got last in your tournament bracket, you actually did the best. Just remember that.
Yeah.
When I was actually, did we talk about this on the last pod? I'm just gonna say it just in case we didn't. But I had every single Final Four team losing in the first round of this year's pod because they were all 5 seeds and 4 seeds.
Yeah.
Like I had Memphis beating FIU. I had Charleston beating San Diego State.
Iona beating UConn.
I had Iona beating UConn.
Oh my goodness.
They were the only team to play them close now, weren't they?
No, they were. They were.
Expert right here.
How did the
It was
points?
Patino.
How do the points work with that? Like, if they went farther, like, do you lose more points in the tournament bracket? No.
It's just you don't gain points.
Right. Okay.
Because you get every single Final Four.
I didn't know if
team
you
on.
did worse. I didn't know if you did worse because a team that you didn't pick went farther.
Yeah.
No.
I get that.
That's all
right.
Here. But that's the college basketball coverage, basically, of Inside Sports Podcast. The only other thing that we will talk about is something that Cole and I have been talking about a lot, is if Bronny James commits somewhere. Because I am hoping and praying that LeBron James Jr. ends up at Ohio State. I honestly don't even know if he's going to be all that good, but he'll be a big story. It'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to root for him.
Yeah.
I've never been able to root for LeBron James, as you all know very well, but it'd be nice to root for Junior in an Ohio State uniform. So that's the only redeeming quality about LeBron, is he's an Ohio State fan.
Maybe I'll have to release my rank of recruits.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty weird year this year.
It is pretty weird. Yeah.
Not yet. Joey.
MLB's
Opening weekend.
It was a beautiful opening weekend.
Let's talk about that.
I loved it. I went to opening day in Wrigley. The vibes were just amazing. That's the only game they've won so far out of the 4.
What inning did you fall asleep in? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
did
I'm
not.
kidding.
That's a good thing to talk about, because I did want to talk about sleeping during baseball games, because this year is different with the pitch clock.
That's right.
That's my first point. I wanted to bring it up. And I don't know if Cole Daly knows much more about it, but I know Jordan knows a little bit about the pitch clock. I hated the idea at first, and after going to the game, and after watching a couple games, I kind of like it now. I feel like the pace is a lot better for a baseball game, keeps more people in it, and then, I don't know, it was just interesting hearing people around me being like, oh my god, it's like the 5th inning already. Yeah. So I kind of like the idea of just the pace being faster. I guess that's all I really have to say about it. But I don't really know how to propose this in a way, but I wish there was a way we could have the pitch clock, but yet not have a real punishment for not pitching in the time limit. I don't even know how to describe what punishment we would need to have, but I hate the idea of a game possibly ending in the 9th inning.
No, I do too.
I wish guys could foul players while shooting, but they didn't get free throws. That's
I don't
what
know.
you're saying.
It's kind of true. It's a slippery slope, and I was fortunate enough to go to a game yesterday, kind of last minute, to the Cardinals game against the Braves. Shout out Austin Riley for the Braves, who hit a ball, probably the first I've ever seen hit. It was pretty cool. It's one of those things where and I'm sure you probably thought this too, Joey. Going into it, I'm like, gosh, I hope I don't hate the pitch clock, because I love baseball, and I hope I don't hate it. Honestly, I didn't really notice it after one inning. One inning, especially where I was sitting, I was looking right at the batter, and the pitch clock was right behind him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so annoying. But after a while, I didn't really notice a difference, honestly.
That's my other point too. I mean, you don't really notice it you notice it right away. I feel like, but then you just forget about it. It's like because it's a new thing. Obviously, you're gonna notice it, but like I don't know. I kind of like it. The game I went to was like only 2.5 hours, so I mean, for non-baseball fans, I feel like it's a good thing to not fall asleep during the game because I feel like a lot of non-baseball fans do that.
I watched Yankees and Giants the other night. I also watched something opening day. I can't remember who it was. It was Dodgers playing somebody. I don't remember.
Diamondbacks.
Yeah, Dodgers Diamondbacks.
That was a great game too.
Yeah.
But yeah, pitch clock is just so interesting. And then I know the other rules with the shift and like the bigger bags.
Yeah.
I kind of like all the new rules so far, just in general, personally. But
Yeah, the other thing too is games have definitely been more higher scoring so far. I feel like it's a combination of all the new rules. I don't think one of them is dramatically increasing it more than the other. I think the other thing too that has really nothing to do with it kind of does have to do with the rules. Some pitchers are taking really well to it, and some just aren't. And I think certain teams as well are taking really well to the new pitch clock rules with their pitching staff. Teams like the Brewers, I think, are taking it really well. They had a really good weekend pitching. Yesterday, they just shut out the Mets 10-0. So certain teams like it. Certain teams are having trouble adjusting to it.
something I've noticed, at least at the start of a game, with the pitch clock, a lot of pitchers, at least in the games I've seen, they actually pitch the ball at about 10 seconds left. And so I wonder if they're just going to get used to trying to take the whole 20 seconds later on in the season when they just get used to it. So some pitchers I feel like are purposely trying to take the full 20 seconds, and I feel like that's a smart move. Obviously, it gives them longer rest.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how this is all just playing out so far with baseball and trying to just modernize the game and all that. So that's the first point I wanted to make. Talking about actual teams now, the Astros, they split that series against the White Sox, and I did predict the White Sox to win that division, so I just think that's interesting. Just want to point that out. But I feel like that's a testament to the White Sox being a lot better this year, but also that doesn't mean that the Astros are just out of it, of course. I feel like it just takes a little while with pitching this year, as we mentioned with pitch clock and everything like that. It takes a lot to get your pitching ready to start the season, and that was obviously their issue in those 2 games that they lost against the White Sox. So that's interesting, and it seems like Tim Anderson is already in prime form because I think he had 2 hits in 2 of those games and then 1 hit in the other. So he hasn't had a game where he hasn't had a hit yet already.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still think the Astros will be in it by the end of the year.
I agree.
You agree?
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers, Trace Thompson, holy crap, did he hit a grand slam in his first at bat?
I think so, and then he hit 2 other home runs after that.
In the same game.
Yeah.
So my point is, are the Dodgers just somehow going to be back in, I don't want to say somehow, or you
He just has to throw. I was going to try to include you in this part actually, and then you just had to,
I just had 3 homers. Not that hard.
If you're playing Wii baseball.
Come on.
Cole Daly did that all the time.
That's easy.
Yeah.
I can do it with my eyes closed. Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, I know me and Jordan talked about how the Dodgers might regress this year a little bit, and I mean, they seem to always figure out a way to develop their players really well. Trace Thompson, former Cub, by the way.
Former Cub, brother of
Clay Thompson.
Clay Thompson.
Yeah, I love that. We got a Splash Bro on our team.
Absolutely.
We used to have a Splash
Bro. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, their pitching is just as great as ever, and I mean, what in the world does their development team do to develop players? Because obviously Trace Thompson didn't work out for the Cubs and any other team.
I don't know.
And now he's hitting 3 bombs, so it's just so interesting to me.
A part of me still thinks they still will regress. I mean, again, we're 4 games in.
Well,
I mean, the Cincinnati Reds are 3 and the Cincinnati Reds are 3-1.
Of course.
You know what I mean? So, but they looked really, really good against a really good Diamondbacks pitching staff as well. So that means something. It doesn't mean everything for the season, but it means something. So. Yeah, I mean, as much as I want them to fail,
I didn't mean to make it seem like my opinion was already changed about them regressing. I'm still of that opinion, but it's just interesting how they came out pretty well so far. Obviously, I'm a Cubs fan, so I'm going to bring up the Cubs a little bit. That was a terrific opening day game. Swanson is great. Horner is great, but I mean, the rest of the lineup leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
So that's just interesting to me. Besides Stroman, I'm not really Stroman and Steele, I should say. Can't forget about. I think he went 6 scoreless as well.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting to see if that's just because the Brewers lineup is just again terrible because they did nothing last year. I shouldn't say nothing, but they're just not the greatest. I really want Suzuki back.
Yeah,
we really need a lot more bats on there. My goodness. And then Bellinger, when he's on, he's really on. He hit the homer the other day, but I mean, I feel like it's just going to be hit or miss with him all year long, and I'm starting to get that vibe. I really hope I'm wrong. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
What say you about the Cubs right now?
I think Suzuki coming back is going to be key,
Yeah.
and that's the fear with him though, is he's been so injury prone so far in his career. You know, how well will he adjust back to major league pitching from playing in the World Baseball Classic? Or actually, no, he didn't play the World Baseball Classic. But the point is, he didn't really get a spring training either. Apparently, he's looked really good in BP, and everyone can look good in BP. So him coming back and being at least a consistent presence in that lineup and taking a guy, no offense to these guys, but like a Miles Mastroboni out or a Nick Madrigal out of the lineup day in and day out, that's going to be huge for us. It really will. And with the guys like Bellinger, Mancini, Hosmer, who we took flyers on, just to see if they can reignite some of that promise that they had earlier in their careers. We know what we're going to get from them. It's not always going to be great. Sometimes we'll say like, oh wow, like this is what like Hosmer had a nice double the other night. Sometimes we'll say it, sometimes we won't. But it's on guys like Suzuki, on Ian Happ, Nico Horner, and of course Dansby. I mean, he's
oh my goodness,
been so on fire defensively too. Oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's incredible to see him and Nico.
I was so excited about his bat, but his fielding is a lot better than I even anticipated. And I feel like that was the thing that everybody was hyping up to. Yeah. I just don't know as much about fielding, but like, oh my god, he's just insane.
He's incredible.
I mean, yeah. And then just one last thing about the Cubs. I could talk about the Cubs all day, but
yes, sir.
I'm just so excited about all the new names on this team. It just feels like a fresh start, and I love it so much. The excitement about this team, even though they've only had the one win so far, I just love it so far. Next point. This is just really random, but I wanted to bring up Kodai Senga's ghost forkball. It's just so interesting to me. I've never seen movement on a pitch like that.
Yeah.
Just the Mets with him and they got Verlander. They do have Verlander, right?
He got hurt though.
He did.
Yeah. Whoa.
Leave
it's okay. It's okay. Leave it. It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
We're all human.
It's okay.
Yeah. I'm still growing a little bit.
I'm about to hit 16 too. But.
You wearing Xbox?
When did he get hurt? I didn't know.
This is past weekend. Like he hasn't pitched yet.
So he got hurt in like warm-ups or something?
I think so. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I wonder if he's gonna miss that first start. But yeah, it's all about the Mets, baby.
Let's go Mets, baby. Love the Mets.
Love it.
Let's go Mets.
Love the
It's
Mets.
all about the Mets.
But yeah, I mean, it seems like I hope Kodai Senga does well. He seems like a really enjoyable personality with the league. So I love that for him. And he makes me believe that the Mets are going to make a run this year. So I feel like they made a run last year. Obviously, they choked when the playoffs come. Hopefully, they don't choke this year. I do like the Mets. I hope they're the better New York team.
Let's
this
go
year.
Mets, baby.
Yeah.
Love the Mets.
The Mets.
And then the last thing, just Phillies 0-4 start. World Series hangover? Question mark. I mean,
of course, yeah.
Obviously, we don't want to panic just 4 games into a 162 game season, but I mean, they weren't even supposed to be in the World Series last year. I feel like they were 5 seed, I believe. So
I think it was 6 seed actually.
Were they really?
Yeah, because they played the Cardinals, who were the lowest division champs.
That's
so
true.
yeah,
That makes sense. But yeah, I mean, they have a lot to be desired so far. But they did play the Rangers, and they're supposed to be very, very good this year with Simeon, Seager, and then just overall pitching. However, Jacob deGrom got hit around this week on opening day, so that's interesting. We're gonna write it off as just a 1-game thing right now. Don't want to panic again. Again, like everything else, but yeah, that's my thoughts on just some opening weekend stuff.
Yeah, the Phillies seem to be one of those teams, like I mentioned earlier, that have not taken kindly to the pitch clock yet. And, baseball's about a game of adjustments more than probably any other sport. It's a pitch-to-pitch adjustment kind of thing. They'll get there eventually. Remember last year they were under 500 for a lot of the year last year, and then just turn it on. And they have the guys that can do that. Trey Turner's still there. Remember Reese Hoskins also got hurt right before the season started in spring training with a really freak injury. I don't even know if he's coming back, honestly. So maybe we should adjust our expectations a little bit. Bryce Harper's still out as well. So yeah, a little bit of World Series hangover, a little bit of injury, a little bit of adjustment. I think they'll be fine in the long run and still compete for a playoff spot. But yeah, certainly we have to damp our expectations a little bit.
Of course. I agree with you. Well,
Long season in the MLB.
Very long
Long
season.
Long season.
Not as long games anymore, but still a long season.
That's
a very good point.
And shout out to the not really a shout out. Screw the MLB scheduling committee. As someone who's a Cubs fan who lives closer to St. Louis than Chicago, they're supposed to have 2 series away against their division's opponents this year, but one of them is in London this year. So they're only coming to St. Louis one time this season, which sucks. But it is on my birthday weekend, so that's pretty nice.
You could just fly to London.
I could, but then I'd have to give up everything else.
me and Jay Cruz flying to London.
Fly to
watch the
London.
There you
Cubs
go.
Obliterate the Cardinals.
Have a
Two
little
boys take
bit
on
of
the
tea
Brits,
beforehand.
dude.
Have some tea beforehand.
Ooh.
Say hi to the queen.
Well. And that's where we're going to end it, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Episode 21. Yes, the DE is capitalized. Please go ahead and like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Please hit the bell. And then if you're listening to this on Spotify, please be sure to like and follow us. Thank you so much. You guys have a great rest of your day.